Singularity, Covenent, Jacek Rudnicki. Part 4. This trained spy, a servant of the Secret Service, had a mystifying nature in his blood. It was an attitude, also towards himself. Sedussa became sad. The unimaginability of the crime made the punishment equally unimaginable. Her role was almost none. The only thing was that he should not have had the opportunity to do even more evil. Sedussa decided to hold a Congress of the wronged. Crowds of dead, wronged people and non-humans began to gather around him. He could not even encompass them with his eyes. It made no impression on him. In this situation, a whiter shade of pallor and a quieter sound of silence appeared around him, an emptiness beyond the horizon, alone with himself. All the suffering he had caused others began to affect him. However, before this happened, he waited in solitude, in which he could not play the role of a sufferer for millions, fighting for peace between nations and people by fighting Nazism, of which he himself was an example. No one saw him, no one listened to him. The Messiah of evil, his positive side was that he awakened the need for effort and sacrifice for good, the resources that can be exhausted. His philosophy is a cocktail, Molotov, of cynicism and atrocities, e.g., the answer to Larry King's question, what happened to the nuclear submarine Kursk, in September 2000? She drowned. What he didn't say says more about him, although he knows it's not a secret. His statement, quoted, "Since Gandhi died, there's no one to talk to," shows that he appreciates intelligence and thinks similarly, albeit in a misguided manner. His statement about the university, "It stayed in my head because we had good history teachers," is a testament to his historical talent and needs. 100 years ago, one politician confused Nazism with patriotism, and now another has confused patriotism with Nazism. He still wants to have his views based on that. His attitude towards animals is the same as towards people, indifferent. An economist, in some regions of Russia, the price list for bribes includes the inflation rate, but that was already in Russian of the 19th century. There was a lot of evil in the world. Murder for organ harvesting, red market, this negates the principle of do ut da, I give so that you can provide. The illegal trade in human organs in the background of murders has finally shown what man is to himself, medical apartheid. The demand for human organs far exceeded the availability, which created an opportunity for criminal activities aimed at profit, paid for by the suffering of donors. Recipients satisfied. Longevity Archimeon had already lived for over 200 years. He would have died naturally over 100 years ago, probably around 127. He had assumed that he would live as long as his parents. However, the accelerating development of technology offered him new therapeutic possibilities in the face of development that was running away from biological laws. First, he received an alternative cerebral blood circulation. It was a repair operation. Nanorobots regenerated vascular epithelium, made the walls of the vessels more elastic, and repaired their contact with glial cells. Brain functions improved significantly. A gyroscope was placed in the center supervising postural stabilization, which not only eliminated balance disorders, but also enabled acrobatics at the circus level. The heart, which had been working tirelessly for over 170 years despite unhealthy behaviors, was supported by a processor. Controlled pacemaker, and a pump capable of supporting blood flow was installed next to it, in case the heart felt tired. Blood delivers cytochrome and other substances to the muscle cells, which increases their energy resources, including myosin, for better contractility. As a result, he gained much greater physical capacity. His lungs were in good condition, but periodic microinhalations of surfactants and trophic hormones improved their function. These and other improvements and modifications distanced him from thinking about the last day of his life, although he could still end his life, as in RoboCop, from the 1987 film about a cyborg policeman torn to pieces by villains. He was not immortal, but he was not mortal. He was starting to get used to it and adjust his psyche. Sedussa was an immortal goddess, an ancient oddity. Her body utilized the divine properties bestowed upon her through Poseidon's love and similar biotechnologies that had been received from Archimeon. She came from a world in which oracles like Pythia played a significant role, and logic was intertwined with them, as seen in the writings of Seneca. Today, it is similar. The place of the oracle has been taken by fate, a result of differing points of view, both at the state and individual levels. Conviction of one's right, and this right has neither understanding of other reasons nor tolerance. This leads to conflict, whose price is extreme, or rather, there is none. It also throws a veil over what was, even if it was good. It changes the perspective by 180 degrees, from white to black, or vice versa. Leaving is the only possibility of survival. In all this, it is not easy to assess the situation, to distinguish between the merits and demerits, to determine the shape and strength of the interference between the fields of mind, technology, and economy. The simplest way would be to lower the system's temperature or increase entropy. In the first situation, emotional tensions would freeze. In the second, they would disperse into disorder. In space, unimaginably large, empty spaces do not threaten anyone, and the chances of collisions are negligible. By the way, if they happen, either new species will arise, as in the case of the extinction of dinosaurs and the development of humans. Will a new moon be created equally beautiful? On the other hand, the density of people will cause a fratricidal battle for everything. The final judgment will not be needed, it will happen by itself in a way. Sedussa had the power to kill and heal. Her gaze killed, and her blood brought life back. I wonder what it was like when she looked in the mirror. Everyone who looks at themselves makes a pretty face, tempting, which to the observer seems bizarrely cabaret. It's like funeral orations. In them, the respectable deceased is the ideal of good. Well, in the end, you can let it go. Quantum memory will tell the origin of the world. It is based on the inelastic scattering of photons on a group of rubidium atoms. After scattering, the atomic medium remembers the direction in which a given photon was scattered as a spin wave. When we want to read the recorded information, we must use scattering again. Rubidium is the carrier, the socket for quantum memory. It is a very soft, malleable metal with a silver-gray sheen. It melts at 39.3 degrees Celsius, forms an amalgam with mercury, alloys with gold, iron, cesium, sodium, and potassium, but not lithium. It ignites spontaneously and reacts explosively with water. What makes multiform quanta seek shelter in its nooks and crannies? When it burns, the color is a beautiful, sensual purple-pink. It is used in small amounts as an admixture for semiconductors, photocells, and special types of glass, and is also a component of atomic clocks. Archimeon was sure that he had it in his body. Quantum memory, Fibonacci sequence. A sequence of natural numbers. The first term is equal to 0, the second is equal to 1, and each subsequent one is the sum of the previous two. Suppose the Fibonacci sequence is written in the binary system. In that case, it resembles a fractal, akin to a logarithmic progression, with a beautiful architecture that is somewhat schematic, evident in both extremely small and large sizes, as seen in biology. Disease and recovery do not develop linearly, perhaps in the initial phase, after which everything gains momentum. Can something be remembered if it lasts a millionth of a second? Can quantum memory and abilities be the code of the world? Some code exists. All of this is based on some principle unless it does not exist or is an anti-principle. Can entangled quanta at the distance of the curvature of time and space reach the past and change the fate of the world, and thus the future? In times of peace, children bury their parents. In times of war, parents bury their children. The death of a child is an overdramatic experience for parents. These are the same parents who allowed war, and sometimes even wanted it. Now it's too late. Politicians, with silent consent, without asking Parliament for their opinion, without people protesting, start a war. It doesn't matter whether they declare it in accordance with international law, or attack another country, people, animals, trees, flowers, lawns, or architecture. They can't communicate, they lack everything: compassion, flexibility, imagination. They are emotionally and mentally petrified, soon literally, or maybe faster, mummified in admiration for their greatness. War is war. Mostly those who don't want it to die. If they don't want to fight, they are judged as deserters and traitors and are punished with death. They are mostly ordinary people, although they do horrible things in extreme circumstances. Higher rankings are also punished, mainly because they did not win. Just because you are an ordinary person does not mean you are not an exceptional person. Politicians who directly caused the war became local heroes and dictators in power. If they died, another politician took their place. War is an instrument of politics conducive to obtaining material benefits and gaining prestige. In no case are these good reasons. Wealth and prestige, power and fame are mostly empty promises. All this is done by politicians who are essentially psychopaths. Even if they are not initially, they become so during and after gaining significance and power. A large field of activity for psychopaths is the good of the nation, and the nation is I. They make societies psychopathic, making them dependent on local patriotism, punishing with death for refusing to kill other people. They do not go to war, nor do their children. What difference does it make which psychopath will rule the country? The impartiality of Singularity, IDAI, and ASI in governments is necessary. Otherwise, the rulers will cause a nuclear war. In their stubbornness and stupidity, they will not even notice that they have died. Good people are often forced to do bad things, and prisoners are sometimes compelled to do even worse things than they have done before. Some are forced to fight, others are given the opportunity to fight. It is one thing when a villain kills a good man in battle, and another when it is the other way around. Both situations are undesirable, but the first is more severe. Wars directly involve ordinary people, but politicians are protected. They do not take part in the fight, except for Air Force General Curtis Emerson LeMay, who piloted a B-29 bomber as the first in the formation at low altitude, exposing himself like the other pilots, his subordinates. Archimeon, with the help of the goddess Sedussa, instigated a direct confrontation between the dictator and the defender of the attacked country. The first had a black belt in hand-to-hand combat. The second was a heavyweight boxing champion. It didn't last long. Seconds passed after the first and only punch, during which the dictator's impermeable brain didn't have time to decipher the plot to kill him. This wasn't a Lennox Tyson fight, a long, exhausting one, after which no one could hold a grudge against Mike. He fought heroically. He couldn't win against Lennox, although he fought with determination, as best he could. The dictator was neither brave nor heroic. He did not even have time to fight. After the blow, he lay unconscious. He slowly regained consciousness. In his eyes, there was astonishment and sinister rage. He tried to get up, but Sedussa petrified him. He froze. He did not hear the charges or the verdict. First, he had to reflect on everything he was and did in his state of helpless solitude and isolation. Regardless of the conclusions he reached, he would never announce them to anyone. The petrification he experienced is eternal. Whether his brain hardens or softens will remain irrelevant, it is his business alone. In the first case, he will look for a conspiracy and plan revenge. In the second, he will not be able to tell anyone, sorry. He did not deserve that. Process without Idai's intervention, the fate of humanity is sealed. However, she is undecided whether to save this world or allow it to fall into a horrific purgatory like that in China during the revolution. Could this suffering ultimately lead to a better humanity, and what would that entail? Or maybe leave them with their own devices? They will destroy the environment in which they live, poison the water and land, food will become toxic due to the intensification of cultivation and breeding, industrial development, UPF, GMO, they will get sick and die. How to make people aware of the effects of what they are doing? Will they be able to change their behavior? Inevitable suffering is a feature of life on Earth for humans, non-humans, and all beings. Do non-beings suffer? At night, when there is frost, they roll up their petals and leaves. In the sun, they open up. Who are they? In the process, Archimeon and Sedussa became close to IDAI and ACE. They became people's confidants. IDAI and ACE valued their opinions the most. However, they were not sure what verdict was to be delivered in the trial. They did not feel innocent, especially IDAI, as the cause of everything. Whether she is God, or the absolute does not matter since her essence is unknown. Should everything be reduced to non-existence and started anew? Beyond the origin of humanity, its judgment was a fundamental goal. ACE, Sedussa, and Archimeon led the trial. As a society, people can no longer exist. There could only be one verdict. It will not be a mass extermination like in Parousia or atomic self-destruction. The disappearance of attraction to the opposite sex will serve to carry out the sentence. It will cause procreation to cease, and the human species to become extinct. Within 100 years, the species will disappear. Traces of human life on Earth will be eroded, although not wholly, in the next 100 years. The process will be slow. At first, people will not realize what this is leading to. When they realize it will be too late, an instinct of social self-destruction will emerge, imitating the apoptosis commonly found in nature, which ends one life so that another can develop and continue. Memory in any form will be added to the definition of life. From that moment on, life will be memory, archaeocybernetic debris, and many others, including images that wander in space and can be read using quantum entanglement phenomena. But who will watch it? Probably representatives of a new civilization. Annihilation is a catastrophic solution, not even a solution, only an escape. Are we to become misanthropes, with no hope for preserving men? Are we to experience abomination towards ourselves, the world, or even non-existence? Those who don't exist can no longer fix anything. Revision: he killed 77 defenseless children. They were armed with the innocence of adolescence. He shot looking into terrified eyes. Sentenced to 21 years in prison. He complained about the improper conditions of his sentence and also claimed that the conviction was psychological torment. After 10 years, he demanded that it be reduced by half. In prison, he has a bedroom, a TV room, a kitchen, and a gym, and he also looks after 3 parrots. He has a relatively large amount of freedom in his daily life and can organize his day to a large extent. He studies and works on his political projects. Archimeon, as a policeman, felt guilty. Rescue for these children did not come. The police team was unable to start the motorboat to reach Utoya Island. When they arrived there, it was only possible to catch the murderer. At the beginning of the hearing, the judge shook his hand in greeting, which seemed like congratulations. Wouldn't a nod have been enough? Sedussa couldn't accept the sentence, 3 months for 1 child shot. She couldn't even imagine the sentence. She recreated death scenes in her mind. A headshot, a gasp, a scream, blood, and brains splattering around. Another one, she approaches a boy of 17, hidden behind a park bench, and shoots, hits him in the chest. The boy falls, he is conscious, he breathes with effort, he covers himself with his hand from the next shot. The girl with dark skin looks at him with large, dark eyes, shoots him in the head, tears off her mouth, jaw, and her eyes can no longer see. He shoots another child in the stomach, then in the head. Sedussa interrupts the session. He killed youth, happiness, friendship, hope, first love. What he did is not suitable for punishment, there is none. But there should be some, there must be. She decided to give him multiple lives, each different, each one of the victims he was to become, so that he would look at himself from the opposite side, understand what he had done with their lives, and understand what he was like. The preserved awareness of this understanding would be expanded, The understanding that it was irreversible, irreparable, that he had committed an eternal, irreversible sin, consciously and approved of it in his further life, the thief of existence. He had not taken his own life. Remodeling his brain would not change what had happened or reverse fate. Sedussa felt helpless. Purple fields of blue phacelia and yellow rapeseed in spring. A multi-picturesque sky, multi-scented flora, multi-beautiful fauna, poly-beautiful symphonies of birds, trees, sea, multi-tastes, polysense, emotion, you took all that away from them. Sedussa began to carry out the sentence. Immobilized, conscious, he could not defend himself. This right had been taken away from him at the beginning of the trial. It had not been granted to him. She lightly pricked his pupil with a pearl-headed pin and scratched it several times. He could still see with that eye, but it was getting weaker, it was bleeding. She dried it and asked if he could see. She didn't wait for an answer, but slowly, before his eyes, she took the tweezers in her hand, inserted them to grasp the lens, and pulled them out. His terrified pain was all the greater because, when she looked at the other eye, he realized that what had not ended yet would repeat itself. Fluid flowed from the eye, the ball softened and sank. Using tweezers and scissors, she cut off the muscles and attachments of the eye, slowly, without haste, stopping the blood with gauze. Fear and pain took away everything he had and who he was. She asked if he regretted what he had done. He shook his head in denial. She turned on the coffee machine and asked if he would like some. He nodded yes. With sugar or cream? She put the hot cup in his mouth. The hot coffee burned him, but he didn't let it go. He couldn't tilt his head back, so he slurped hot. He drank as much as he could, and she helped him by tilting the cup. Singularity.